Welcome to Promotion Update. This month we'd like to review two of the promotions that have recently hit the streets, and one in particular that's designed by Janet Odgis. Today, joining me in the studio, I have Janet Odgis, which is a pleasure for all of us, and she's introducing the first Carnival offset and cover promotion we've probably done, if my memory serves me correctly, since Carnival time in 1981. So this is a rare occasion. Janet has been traveling around with me introducing Imagination 26, also which she designed. So she has the also rare task of having two of Champion's best promotions of the year under her belt. Janet, can you take us through Messages?
Yes, thank you. This is Messages, and on the cover we have three metallic inks and three different hot stamps. Wanted to get the idea across of the idea of messages moving through time, through history, different ways messages could be received. And that was the reason for the modulation in tone, which is very subtle. On the other side of the page, I used the gray as a full background and dropped the art out, using the green there as a colored, almost as a colored ink or another color on the page rather than as a background. Across from that we have this symbol which kind of brings us to the future, and had this ink specially mixed, combining the green of the pine with the metallic qualities, giving it a certain amount of dimension. Here we talk about Morse code, signal flags, and semaphore. And as you open up the semaphore page, you get a secret message, which was actually printed on a piece of cloth. And in this case, I'm experimenting with different types of blacks. Black's a color that people often don't explore, and I really enjoyed making warm and cool blacks. Here I worked with a pink over black, and this is a special black that was mixed. That's a sort of green black in contrast to the pink black. And here, also on the inside, it's two other blacks. This is a halftone black and white photograph, and on it we just isolated certain areas like the hands and the Ouija board and part of the Ouija board, this piece that they move around. And we assigned different tint values to them, which printed right on top of the black and white photograph. And because of the color of the paper and this type of paper, it has a tremendous amount of dimension to it, much more than it would have as a four-color image, I think. And this is a part of the book that I really enjoy. We worked with pine and agate and coral, which really look great together. And we took these four-color images, which actually look better printed on this paper than they did on white paper. We used the attitudes of the individuals being described here, the characterizations, to choose the colors, and on the reverse side of it, so you can mix and match the expressions. And make sure you perforate these pages for your clients before you show it to them, because we weren't able to completely die cut the page, because it would have made it very difficult to bind it. So here you're changing expressions. And on the other side of this are body language, and we have three different aspects of body language here. And the interesting thing here is that we worked with transparent inks and used the same yellow and the same blue throughout these three pages, and made the duotone so that we dropped out all the highlights so that it became the color of the paper, and just printed the blue and black in each case. But transparent light color inks really affect the color affect the paper very interestingly, because it makes another color that's very subtle, so that if you look at the two sides of the paper, they're different. This is a talking about hand signals, signing, and here we have working from 10% through 70%. On the reverse side, we're talking here about stenography, which I never really saw before this particular time when I was looking for it, and I thought it was kind of fascinating the way it looked, and I've just broken it up into 3 different colors, so it had the feeling of moving messages, moving. And on the reverse side of that, we enter another part of the book in which we talk about messages that come through the mail, messages that are received through different forms of written communication, which is my personal favorite type of correspondence and messages to be received. This first piece, and we used a series of die cuts to overlap each other, so all the textures of the different types of pieces of mail are seen simultaneously, as well as the colors of the paper, which are so beautiful together. I think it's important that this paper has a particularly unusual collection of light colors, and the light colors add a real nice dimension to the art. I think that they can substitute for white in certain cases and also be used as a second color or another color in other cases, and I tried to do that throughout this section, picking up on both using it as a positive and as a negative space, and I think it adds depth and dimension. Here we have a thermograph. The black is in thermography. This paper thermographs beautifully, and so is all the black in the art, and there are 3 colors used in the offset part of this. And on the reverse side is a shell pattern created out of 1 color. There's a light screen in the background of the shell pattern, and the beautiful part about this paper is that you could also use all sorts of tin screens on it, and it really, you can't really see the dots. It appears as if the paper, it's printed with many more colors than it's really printed with, just using dot screen. So this is really just 1 color, and the actual color of the paper is used in the highlight areas, and it's used full strength for the actual shells. And across from the shell pattern is a postcard having to do with the same idea of beaches, and the water is hot stamped with a clear foil. And this is a Dr. Martin's dye watercolor type of image, and it really also works very well. It makes the paper look like a piece of art paper or watercolor paper. And this is a light gray, which you'd think would dull the image, but in this case it doesn't dull it at all. It really the colors come off as brilliantly as can be. We put some fluorescence in the yellow and in the pink of this piece of art. On the reverse side, we're talking about communication through writing, and there's a pattern of nibs and little bottles of ink, and they're created out of a gray and a purple. The paper itself is gray, so it's a very soft tone. On the other side of the paper, we're reversing it out from the green that's printed here, and so it's a negative on one side and a positive on the other. The M for messages is a sculpted die combination of emboss and deboss, which is hot stamped with a lavender foil and pigment. And this paper worked beautifully. It has a great deal of dimension to it. This page has to do with the idea of an invitation, and we use the words marriage, virtue, pleasure, overlapping the calligraphy on top of each other. In this case, working with the blue and the pink to create the purple, the 3rd color. And on the other side of the page, just using gray and pink and dropping the art out in this case. This has to do with the idea of travel, and this pattern was created from little suitcases and cameras, and these are little rolls of toilet paper that we put into the pattern, and the background color drops out of the suitcases to create the highlights. And on the reverse side, we have a photograph of Leningrad, which prints really well on this paper, 4-color process. Believe it or not, works beautifully, and it's broken up into the 3 process colors, the magenta, the cyan, and the yellow. And here we're talking about airmail, and this is 2 grays or 2 gray purples dropping out to the color of the paper. And on the other side of the page, it's created out of 3 colors. The green is made out of the blue and the yellow on top of each other. And this is pre-separated art. These stamps are pre-separated art, and this is Greek. It's a Greek alphabet. And this has to do with the idea of love letters. And we were trying to work with the pink on this side of the page and creating it on this side of the page. Every page is a different color, so we were trying to create something that worked across the gutter and somehow pulled the paper from one side to the other, creating a continuity in the spreads. And we did that by creating a tint of the pink here and printing it solid here and dropping it out. And then in this case, on the other side of the page, the pink almost seems as if it's a printed color rather than the color of the paper itself. And this has to do with the idea of direct mail. And these are different things that you have to use for direct mail, and I wanted to look at it in a more creative way, or to work with it in tints of itself, going from dark to light, creating, again, the idea of motion in space. And then the Big Bill Company has to do with the idea of bills, and the pattern is actually a lot of numbers that are written as you usually write different sums or whatever on the back of your bill, trying to figure out whatever you owe inside. This is just a pattern of kind of repeated different sums and mathematical calculations, and it's printed in a screen of the green. So this is really, it's one green ink on green paper with a tint value used here. And then there's a die cut, which shows up as the dial of the radio. And again, you get to see the color of the pink paper on this paper, which has a greenish tint. And this was pre-separated art. It was created all out of black and white, and different layers assigned different colors. A printer would put it together. And on the reverse side of the page also, we have the idea of the radio and messages being received over the radio, the little houses and the information traveling. Here we're talking about remote control. And this image was created, the actual sleeve itself was a piece of computer-generated art, which was dropped into a piece of line art, and the background, of course, was dropped out black. And this page received an awful lot of ink. This is one pass of black, and it didn't pick. It really held the ink cleanly. And across the gutter, another colored paper and a television screen, and on the television screen are some clouds that appear on an agate stock. And the purple color of some of the pixels here was created by mixing a kind of agate match color with some metallic ink. I had drawdowns done on every page so that I could test the inks on each page, and that was a really great way to work on colored paper. I think it's important to relay that message to designers, that working with drawdowns allows you to see everything before you go to press. It saves you a lot of time and energy in the end. And then I have here a metallic foil hot stamp for the television screen, which kind of modulates, going from being dropped out to actually being hot stamped on this side of the page. And the die cut can be seen in two ways, working as the television screen, and here it's used as a computer. And the computer-generated art is on the screen. And there's colors in the backgrounds, the zeros and the ones, which are actually the computer language, are printed out of fluorescent inks, and they tend to move. When you look at them, they have a kind of moving effect, which seems as if the message is being traveling on the circuits of the zeros and the ones. And this piece of art was computer generated as well. And on the other side of the page is a simple message, which is smoke signals, just created out of black and one pass of opaque white.
Thank you very much, Janet. Thank you for sharing with us your expertise and insights. I think it's another smash hit. I am, however, very disappointed in one thing. You had told me that this M here that's foil stamped stood for McDowell, not Messages. I guess you really know how to work a client. But it's a great piece, and I could call it the imagination of Carnival offset and cover. A real credit to you.
Thank you.
I'd like to move along now to Dingbats, which has just been released to you in the field. It was designed by Paula Scheer, and as you can tell from its size, is the third in the series that before it had Beautiful Faces 1 and Beautiful Faces 2. The principle is the same with Dingbats. What we're trying to do is to put a piece in the designer's hands that'll stay with them over time rather than end up in the trash basket. And the way we do that is to give them a collection of usable artwork that they will hopefully refer to time and again, therefore making our papers more accessible to their needs when they're doing their specifying. The cover is Chrome Coat 12.1 side. It's printed in matched colors on the front, 6 of them, with a varnish, and on the inside is a solid black. And if you ever wanted to see solid printed on the uncast side of Chrome Coat, this is where you turn. Again, the cover is quite striking. You can see Paula Scheer's album, record album design background influencing this one right here. Dingbats, if any of you are like me, when she presented this a couple of years ago, she says, I'd like to do a piece on Dingbats. I had absolutely no idea what she was talking about. I felt a little naive, or else I thought she was going to do a piece on crazy people. It turns out Dingbats are an everyday vernacular for little things that people use as clip art in design. So we approached this with the understanding that designers need several things to do a job. They need artwork and they need paper. And we figure if we can combine the two, we have a winner here. I'm going to go through with you just a few of these samples, not with the expertise that Janet shared with us, but just to talk about how the artwork was rendered on some of our linen stock. We put in here one grade only, linen offset and cover, and we did that to focus more on our brands, more on our image of one grade linen, as opposed to our color collection, which often confuses the designer. What you see here is, on the first one, is swashes, and those are the names, again, almost slang terms for some of the types of dingbats you can find. On the cover you see the use of a swash over a piece of art. On the inside you see several hundred swashes which you can clip out and reproduce. All of the insides are printed in black and with red numbers, and all of them print with incredible clarity, particularly the fine lines. I think you'll find you can reproduce them quite easily off these sheets. The halftone here on the cover is printed in blue over a metallic silver. It's sort of like a cheap man's duotone is what they used to call it. And then you have the gold foil stamp on the cover. I'm not going to go through all of them, but you can see different types of artwork used and different printing techniques on our linen paper. We have a solid gray here. We have 4-color process in the middle, taking the process red and enhancing the flower as a solid instead of a dot pattern, then using process yellow and red to make this pattern here and some process colors here. So again, it's using different types of techniques all on uncoated paper to show off the papers, and also to try to capture a little bit of the color and the flavor of the line, the softness, if you will. This reminds me of Alfred Hitchcock's Birds. I don't know if it reminds you of the same. It is meant to. Leaves, trees, and birds are the subject, and you see one flying in a specially matched color. What Paula did with ink drawdowns is pick the shades of ink to match the image she had in her mind, and they're not necessarily this color if printed on white paper. In fact, this color is quite ugly. Again, she uses a black and gray duotone, two colors in the duotone here, and a couple other matched colors in the corner. This is typical of artwork that you see using dingbat art. You have Richard Nixon printed in a very, very coarse green halftone, and then you use just different coarse printing impressions of dots as backgrounds, not as halftones. And it's just a fun display of hands, which she says will be probably the most popular of all the sheets. Everyone needs a hand, she says. So that's the message behind dingbats, to coin a phrase. I think you'll find it will be a keepsake. In fact, the two places that Paula has presented it, in Chicago and in Dayton, Ohio, It was wildly received. Everyone grabbed their ones and held them to their chest when they walked out because they know it's a collector's item. There's actually over 2,000 dingbats in here, which she called again from very unusual sources. So it's a keepsake. I think the promotion's going to be a winner, and we'll be mailing that out to the design community around about June 15th. That ends this segment of promotion update. I would like to say we're going to do another one in the end of May because we have a very busy month ahead. Right now on press is a Chrome Coat competitive sample kit, which I think you'll find quite interesting, identifying the visual properties of our Chrome Coat one side and making them really putting them in a light that they should receive as really the best in the business. Also ahead we have the Color Ensemble, which is a compendium of all of our uncoated Carnival grades and offset colors. And we also have the fourth book of Pageantry Elders. So until then, have a nice month, and thank you again, Janet.
Thank you.